Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads.
Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads joining you as I do each and every week. This is episode number 122. I hope everybody's having a good week out there. We're having a great week over here at the Drum Shuffle World Headquarters. As we do most weeks, it's usually pretty laid back around here. Just trying to get back into that post-holiday groove, back to work. Doing all the good stuff, hoping and praying for a change in this whole global pandemic situation so we can all get back to some gigs and some live music. That's what we're all hoping for. We have a great episode for you today. I'm going to be joined by one of Nashville's hottest young and up-and-coming drummers, Stefan Chippeaux, right after this message from our sponsor, Los Cabos Drumsticks. The best kept secret for drummers is finally out. Los Cabos drumsticks may look like the sticks you grew up with, but these are not your father's drumsticks. Los Cabos Drumsticks is Canada's #1 drumstick brand, and they are coming to a retailer near you. With operations in over 28 countries worldwide, thousands of drummers have already discovered the Los Cabos difference. Using FSC certified wood from Canada and the U.S., Los Cabos make the finest quality drumsticks, percussion tools, and accessories on the market. The best news, Los Cabos Drumsticks offers you a ton of choice. They have 22 individual drumstick models and 14 percussion tools, many of which are available in 3 different wood types: maple, white hickory, and red hickory. Red hickory comes from the center or heart of the hickory tree and has been independently proven to be both stronger and more elastic than white hickory without adding a lot of weight. While most drumstick manufacturers have shunned red hickory, Los Cabos Drumsticks has embraced it, becoming the only established stick brand in the world to offer a full line of red hickory drumsticks. To learn more about Los Cabos Drumsticks, visit them online at loscabosdrumsticks.com. Follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and don't forget to ask for Los Cabos Drumsticks at your favorite retailer. Dare to be different. Join the Red Hickory Revolution with Los Cabos Drumsticks. All right, guys and girls, our guest this week on the Drum Shuffle is a young fella down in Nashville. He's been there a few years now, but Stefan Chippeaux grew up in Tampa, Florida, and made the move to Nashville to try to do some, full-time work. And we discussed that decision-making process. When am I ready to move to a larger city to continue my drumming career? And Stefan is, first of all, he's one of the busiest guys in Nashville. But he felt like he had reached a peak in his native Florida. He was doing all the gigs. He wanted to expand his horizons. So he went to Nashville. And I've been following Stefan for quite some time through social media channels. And he is just building his career and his portfolio in Nashville. And I thought it would be very insightful for all of you guys to hear from him. He truly is one of the great up-and-coming drummers in the Nashville scene, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this. So please help me welcome my friend to the Drum Shuffle, Stefan Chippeaux. Hey, Happy New Year, Stefan. How are you, brother?
Good. How are you, Jamie?
Man, I can't complain a bit. So lots of gigs over the New Year's holiday for you, I take it?
Yeah. It's been, as crazy as this year has been and how slow things have kind of, been this past year for everyone. It really hasn't slowed down as crazy as it sounds for me. I've been doing a lot of studio stuff over the quarantine time. I took the time and money into investing in a recording rig for my house, putting that all together and digging into that. And so that kind of entertained my time of downtime. And then it just kind of picked back up again with gigs slowly but surely. And yeah, so it's been great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that, Nashville is one of those weird places where, if you're a road artist, you're touring 200 nights a year, that has pretty much shut down completely.
Yeah. Especially tier 1 level.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're playing there locally, I mean, for whatever it's worth, and we're not going to get into, COVID protocols or whatever, but
yeah.
I know a lot of the venues have stayed open through this. So working musicians have continued working for better or for worse, right?
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's pretty wild, but we of course they're following regulations and what the mayor's asking, as wild as it may be, but I mean they're staying safe and it's staying consistent for us, that way we can still make a living and be able to feed our families and not have to sit here and struggle. So it's definitely a blessing.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, so as is kind of our tradition here on the Drum Shuffle, let's back up, let's rewind a little bit, and let's tell all of our listeners how, where you grew up and how you got into drumming. You're a Florida native originally, correct?
Yep, Tampa, Florida, born and raised. Yep.
Okay. So how did you get into drumming and music? Do you come from a musical family?
Yes and no. My mom, yes. My dad, no. My mom played in marching band and did chorus and stuff. She was mainly a singer and then did clarinet and oboe and stuff, for marching band and concert band. And so that's kind of where my mom's side of the family is where more of the musical talents and gifts come from.
Okay.
And then my dad's more of kind of like the hands-on hard worker. He's a master mechanic and does big machinery stuff. And I kind of learned my kind of driving, kind of effort of pushing forward and going, through obstacles from his side of like, pushing hard and working hard. And so I kind of got the best of both worlds from their both kind of lifestyles.
Sure. Well, so did you start playing at an early age, or was it more of, school band, things like that? Or were you a kid that, got into rock and roll early on and started begging for a drum set, or both?
It's pretty wild. Yeah. Like I remember having music in the house, with cassettes and stuff, and my mom had a huge cassette collection. I remember just opening that up and just starting to dig into stuff like when I was younger. And I think the first kind of sign of me getting excited about drums was I learned in church. So I remember going to youth group, I just remember standing out in the audience when they were doing worship, and I was just looking back at the drummer, and I just was excited, and I had this kind of pit feeling in my stomach that I was like, I just feel like that's kind of what I want to do,
Yeah.
And that same drummer actually ended up being my first drum instructor, and I took lessons for about a year, and we actually we would just go to the church, and we would close the curtains on the stage, and he had this awesome kit. I just remember the first time sitting down at the drums, like I think it was 2 up, 2 down, or 2 up, 1 down, it's something like that of configuration, and a bunch of cymbals around. And I just remember it was, as everybody I'm sure felt, it was just like a space station kind of feel. I felt like I was in another world, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. Like,
yeah.
Just there's so many things that you could sit there and hit and mess with, and so that kind of feeling right there, I was just immediately hooked. And I took lessons for a year. And then after that, he just kind of told me, hey, just go on YouTube, start exploring, and start digging into stuff, read books, watch live, performances, and just kind of just get excited about everything. And that's exactly what I did. And yeah, I mean, 17 years later, here I am playing professionally, and yeah, made the move to Nashville, and yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, so now, did you do marching band and all that good stuff as well?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So
yep, did it all throughout middle school, high school. I did kind of like a choir ensemble. It was called Showcase, and we had 9 singers, and then there was a 6-piece band. We had like brass players, and you know, we were a show choir, and yeah, so I did that. That was kind of really a big fundamental moment for me, but along with marching band. And you know, teaching me to work in a group format, to be a team player, to follow direction, to, you know, we were doing covered songs and tribute songs, and then same with marching band. Taught me very much discipline. You know, I always have a really good internal metronome in my head, just from that metronome in the back of the field, just don't. You know, you can just hear it. You know, every time that I get behind a kit now, you know, I just have I could just hear it clicking in my head, and I just count the song off when I'm ready to go. And then when you add a metronome to that, you know, of any sort of gig that you're playing, you know, whether it's tracks or, you know, Dr. Beat, whatever the case may be, you know, it just adds to that solid, you know, kind of feel of a song. So.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think guys that do marching band, they kind of have that, you know, the what you referred to, the field metronome. It's just drilled into their brain, you know, for hours and hours and hours. And, you know, and the chops are obviously always there, you know, the rudimentary chops, you know, so that's cool. Now, you and I have kind of followed each other on social media for quite some time now. It's been a long time, but I remember seeing I can't remember if it was Facebook or Instagram or where it was, but one of your profiles said that you worked for Busch Gardens. So I'm assuming you played music at the amusement park. Was that the same show choir, or was it a different scenario?
That was my first professional job as a drummer, a working drummer, and that was. I didn't go to college for music or anything. I went for a semester, and I was actually going to study fire science, and I was going to become a firefighter. And I went for a semester, got all A's and B's, which was crazy because in high school I just completely sucked. I had no really need or want to excel in classes. I just wanted to get to band class and start playing music again. And so I started, you know, going to college, and then I got a reach out from a piano player who did accompany stuff for when I was in high school for the choir and stuff, and he was the music director at the church that I was attending at the time, Lake Magdalene. And he reached out to me over Facebook and said, "Hey, you know, you've been graduated for a year. We need a worship drummer for our contemporary service at the church here." And at that point, after I graduated in 2013, I hadn't played in, it was a little over a year. And I remember just waking up every day just miserable, and I was groggy, and I was just, anybody that was around me, I feel so sorry for anybody that was around me because I was so miserable. And so I wasn't happy, and I knew exactly what I wasn't happy about, but I didn't know how to fix it at the time. And, you know, thank God that, you know, Joey Harries is his name, and he reached out to me, and that's how I kind of got started being introduced into playing again after graduating and being so busy with marching band and middle school and, you know, going through that whole experience of growing as a musician through, you know, education. And so that led to me playing in worship, you know, every Sunday, and, you know, playing in a team format again. And then things just kind of started escalating, and kind of things just, you know, started getting more and more busy for me again. And then I made the connection through Busch Gardens, went and auditioned for the parks, and I got it off of a whim. It was really close because my reading notation was not up to par as it should have been, and that gig specifically required a lot of reading. drum charts and, just charts in general for the tribute shows, and because you have to be spot on with those. You're when you're doing those tribute shows and those era shows, you have to be pretty consistent every time, especially with we did like Frankie Valli tributes and 80s tributes, so it was you're sitting there dedicating your playing to others that did it before you, and if you're not on par and doing it justice, then why are you doing it at all?
Yeah.
That whole experience for me was my college degree, I would say. I was playing with cats that played in original Broadway productions. I was in a brass band there that there was a trumpet player that played in the original production of Phantom of the Opera, and there was a saxophone player. He played for Frankie Valli back in the day, and I was playing with these guys that have been doing it for half of their life, and I was just this young buck, 21-year-old just coming in there, and I had no clue what I was getting myself into, and it was that humble experience of those older guys telling me, "Hey, you're not as good as you think you are," and don't put all your cards out on the table, when you're, right off the beginning. And I was sitting there, coming out of high school, like you said, with the chops from marching band and stuff, and just throwing all the fills that I could every 8 bars, and every 16 bars that I could of just, it was almost like a song full of drum solos, and yeah, it was a very humbling experience for them to sit back and tell me, like, "Hey man, like, slow down."
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people don't realize, I think a lot of people that are in the know about music, when they go to a theme park or an amusement park and they see the bands, right, the musical entertainment, they're like, "Oh, this is kind of cheesy." That's kind of the first reaction. What people don't realize is how good you have to be. Like, I know some guys that played at Disney, and they were like, I would be, at 3 o'clock, I would play in a rock band, someplace. And then, the guy that was in the Dixieland jazz band might have called in sick, and I had to change costumes and go over there and sight read a Dixieland jazz show,
It's crazy. It's amazing that you mentioned that, because I remember one time specifically, I was playing in that brass band that I was telling you about, and I remember I was in another show. It was called Christmas from the Heart, and it was more kind of like gospel driven, based off because it was during the holiday season, and we were doing holiday shows at that point. And so I went from I did the downbeat, for the last note for the brass band, and I remember the music director of the park came up in a golf cart, and I remember getting off stage, and she was like, "Oh man, our drummer didn't show up for the shift for Christmas from the Heart. Something happened. We need you. I'm going to take you on this golf cart. We're going to go across the park, and you're going to be doing both shows tonight, back to back." So I remember doing the brass band, and then they would take me right off stage on the golf cart. I'd switch out of my uniform from that, and then I'd go put on my costume at Christmas from the Heart and play the gospel show, and then it was back to back. I mean, I think it was either 4 or 5 shows that night, and it was back to back the whole night, because it was switched up schedule on the show, time. So it was a wild night. I have some crazy stories from me playing at that park, and it was just amazing stories and amazing times, and I had so much good memories from that, and like I said, it was such a good growing, developing time for me, since I didn't go and get a music education per se, from college. So
yeah, well, I mean, not everybody goes and gets that musical education from college, and that doesn't preclude you from being, an A-list player. It really doesn't. I mean, I just think that for most guys, it's about playing as much as you can, right? I mean, whether that's at Busch Gardens or, the club scene in, Chicago or Austin or wherever it's at, you just need to play in as many different situations as you possibly can. And that whole paying of dues sort of thing, but you learn so much from playing in all those different situations. You can't help but progress as a player when you're thrown into all those different situations, right?
Yeah, perfectly said. Yeah, it's crazy as it seems. It's completely true. You sit here and you have those moments to where you look back at things and you're like, wow. You look at your history of playing and where you've come from and like how you've kind of gone up in this business, and everyone knows this is one of the toughest businesses in the world. You sit here and you try and navigate things, and then you get led down some corridors, and then some doors shut, and you're like, okay, I thought I was going to go through that path, but I guess not now. So then you keep going down, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go this direction and see if it works out, and then it doesn't, and you're like, okay, well, back to square zero again, and then you're so it's wild, man. It's an up and down roller coaster, as everyone knows that's in this business, and it's hard to navigate. But at the end of the day, when you are successful and you are doing what you love, that's really what it just comes down to. You just have to be appreciative and just stay grounded that you are doing something that not everyone can do. There's plenty of people out there working blue collar jobs and jobs that kind of almost got chosen for them, whether it was, what their parents were doing at the time and that led them in that direction. And, it's different for everybody. There's so many people out there wanting to do what we're doing, and you just have to be appreciative of it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I've had so many, guys and girls on this show that, I envy their careers and
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, I've had people that were like, hey, I went to do a fill-in gig for X, whoever that may be. And here I am 27 years later, still playing for X, It's just like, you just never know which of those doors, as you put it in your analogy, you never know which of those doors you walk through ends up being your career. I mean, you just don't know, but so many different musicians have said, just say yes to everything. You'll figure it out. Just don't turn down a gig. Go play the gig. You never know what might happen. And
absolutely,
you end up in a career that you love. So after your time, in Florida, I know that you played in a lot of different, scenarios down there. And I don't want to gloss anything over, but, a few years back, you made the decision to make the move to Nashville. Talk to me a little bit about, why was that decision made? Do you feel like you reached your peak in Florida and you needed more opportunities to really thrive? But, tell us about your decision to make the move to arguably the most competitive musical landscape on earth.
You nailed it right on the head. It was a tough but fulfilling option and move for me. Of course, I had second thoughts. Of course, I was scared. Of course, especially being born and raised, that I'd never moved anywhere else. That was all I knew. You called it right as it was. I was doing the same thing every day, and although I was appreciative, I didn't see myself excelling past more than what I was doing at the time. I saw guys around me that were doing the same thing I was doing, but 30 years into it. And I saw myself getting complacent, and I saw myself getting just in the same spot, and I wanted to keep excelling forward. And there's it's not to say that those guys that are doing it still aren't doing it successfully and they're making a wrong choice. It was just for me personally, I had to make a decision to take a leap of faith and of just craziness, because like you said, this is the toughest and most competition-driven city in the country, along with New York and LA and all those, staple cities that are music-driven. I didn't see myself moving to LA. It just wasn't for me. I didn't see myself moving to New York. Yet again, wasn't my forte. And I figured this was the closest to what I was comfortable to, weather-wise and just kind of overall, just seeing, still being in the South and stuff. So that was my choice. And, it was, my first kind of, thoughts of doing it was through Jim Riley, actually, good buddy of mine. And he's actually, my instructor here in Tennessee now. And, I started networking with him and also John Hall and Rich Redmond from the Aldine camp, and started reaching out to them through the in-ear company that I use, Dream Ears. Mitch Markham down there custom makes all those for all the guys in town, and I got their contacts through him. So I started networking with John and Rich, and so I started making contacts here and started talking with them, and eventually progressed into me having the ideas of moving here now. And as wild as it may seem, I got in a car accident the year before I decided to move here. It was a few months when I finally made the decision to pull the trigger, and it put me in the hospital for about a month. And I wasn't able to play for that whole time, and I was still doing full-time music, right before I moved, and I messed up my wrist, and I had to rehab from it and get back to full health again, and I was supposed to be doing a camp on one of Jim Riley's camps up here that he hosts, and it was on the weekend of my birthday. It was crazy, but I was supposed to come up here, and I drove home late one night, and a lady came across the street in the median, and I collided with her, and it was a wild experience, and I ended up having to reschedule with Jim for a later date, and actually when I rescheduled is when I had moved up here at that point, so it worked out pretty well. But I remember I was supposed to be staying with John, and I called him, and I was like, hey man, I know you saw what happened, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to come up there now, and so he was like, man, with all that negativity going on down there, and with everything going on, why don't you just move up here, and just get a fresh start and just see what happens, And I was like, well, I mean, if it's better time than, now, I mean, I might as well.
Yeah.
So, started making plans, and, my girlfriend, now wife, she was going to be going to New York to stay with her dad at the time. And, I was like, well, if we're going to do a long distance kind of thing, I might as well move, to, a city that I want to, try and make something happen in. And, that way, we're still moving at a forward progression, and, but also staying consistent, with each other. So, so that's kind of how it started. I ended up moving up here. I moved to Clarksville at first and was doing that commute over from Clarksville because my folks actually live over there. They moved here a few months before I did, and got to stay with them, so I didn't have to worry about rent or anything, and that was a blessing that, more than I could ever imagine, because that's what a lot of guys' demise is when they move here, is that, rent alone just can eat you alive in this city. So that was a huge help for me. So I was doing that commute and just started, networking, and then I ended up getting on with Drum Paradise with Harry McCarthy.
Yeah.
And I started doing cartage for all the session guys around town, and and it's been a great ride so far. I've been here about 4 years. And I don't know if you want me to stop and recollect, but I can, or keep talking about my, 4-year adventure here, and I'll ramble on for hours.
Well, no. And I mean, I think it's great information because, I mean, that's one of the big questions that I get a lot from listeners. They're like, I mean, obviously I never made the move to LA, New York, or Nashville. I've stayed in Central Kentucky, and I'm okay with that. I'm only about 3 hours up the road. So, if I want to go to Nashville to work, if somebody asks me to come down and do some work, I can, no problem. But I'm very comfortable here in the very low rent Central Kentucky,
Yep.
But I think what's interesting about your story is there are so many guys and girls that that move to Nashville that have not networked with somebody like Jim Riley from Rascal Flatts, right? Or Rich Redmond from, Jason Aldean's band, and, who has done probably, 40,000 sessions in Nashville over the last 25 years. I mean,
I think you're shyballing it there.
Yeah, man.
It's wild.
Yeah, Rich is a buddy of the show, he's been on before, and, he was just one of those guys that when he got there, he just worked. And when I say worked, he never said no to anything, right?
Yep. Even if it was like a circus act, like, playing behind jugglers. Yeah, it's amazing the stories that he has of the gigs, his track history of gigs that he's had.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So, so you had a couple of, pretty heavy hitters in the industry that you had networked with. And, that's a big thing. If you move to Nashville and you literally know absolutely no one, it's going to take you a while to establish a base and get some gigs, because Nashville is very much a town of referrals. Honestly, it really is. You have to know people to work, and, doing cartage for Drum Paradise. That had to be a huge foot in the door as well. If you're doing cartage for the studios, you're seeing people, you're telling them, hey, I'm a drummer. If somebody, breaks their finger, call me, right?
Yeah. And even just getting to network with the drummers that I'm doing cartage for, you have Jerry Rowe, Miles McPherson, we were Dan Needham. It's amazing, the names that I got to, Shannon Forrest. It's just, we did it for so many high profile players in town. Near Z, it's just, so many heavy hitters that I was getting to sit there, and we would, after the sessions were done, if we were able to get there in time before they left, after they were done tracking, we would get to sit there, and network with them and talk with them and get in front of them and introduce ourselves. And, so it's just an amazing experience. I'm so glad that I got to do that. And, it was such a helpful tool for me when I first moved to town, of getting to understand what this business and industry looked like on a professional, high-profile level, and what it took for me to be able to meet those expectations.
Yeah, well, and I think you said it all right there. The expectations, and I it's hard to explain to somebody that has not worked in the Nashville scene. It's different than any other scene anywhere on earth. It really is. And the expectations in Nashville are very different than the expectations in LA or New York. It's just, in Nashville, time is money. There is no, how do I say this? There is no, hey, let me try this on this next take. It's like, no. You'd better have your crap together when I hit, when the red light comes on, you get one shot, son. You get one shot. So it is different, but you mentioned Jerry Rowe in there. Jerry's a good friend, and has been on the show in the past. And you want to talk about somebody that can literally do anything. He's done records with Rodney Crowell, and
he's on every Luke Combs hit today.
Yeah, and then he has his own band, Friendship Commanders, with his wife, which is like this power sludge metal band, and you hear his playing with somebody like Rodney Crowell, or like you said with Luke Combs, and then you hear him play in this heavy metal band, and you go, man, what can't that guy do? But you have to have that versatility in the Nashville scene.
Or else you'll just get trampled on, and you get chewed up and spit out here very quickly. As sad as that seems, if you don't adjust very quickly, and you don't adapt to what you see around your surroundings, you're not going to be successful here. As tough as it sounds, it's it's very imperative for you to come here with the open mindset of, I am not anywhere close to being where I should be. You can't come here with an ego. You can't come here with pride. It's one of those things to where you have to be an open book. You can't put up walls. It's an ever growing, learning experience of just being a sponge, sucking up all the knowledge and excellence around you, and taking that in and using it to your own advantage in your own way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think what you're saying, and I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but you can't approach opportunities there as I do what I do and they're going to like it because they hired me because of whatever that is. I do what I do. You're going to get direction and you have to be able to take it.
Exactly.
You have to be adaptable in the professional studio setting in Nashville, Tennessee. You really do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably a really good reason why I don't live there. I mean, I'm not that good to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not that adaptable, and that's okay because, I'm twice your age and but I always find it interesting when young guys move to Nashville and they start finding success. Nobody's rooting for you more than me. I promise you that. It's like every time somebody goes and makes a name for themselves, it's like, that's how it's supposed to work. Way to go.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's amazing because especially nowadays, it's twice as hard as it was, 10, 15 years ago even, So, for me being such a young player and pushing and striving for very tough goals, I'm just glad to even get to the point that I'm at right now in this business, just playing and having a consistent schedule to where I'm being able to feed my family off of what I'm doing for a living, So for that point, I'm very pleased and happy to begin with. Of course, I have continued goals and pushing, the boundaries of what I think I can do, or whatever the case may be. But I'm just even more pleased at where I'm at right now. So
yeah. Well, I know you're staying busy and you're playing in a lot of different musical situations. And I know when you got to town, you played in churches and whatnot. But I mean, I know that you just wanted to play. I'm here to play. I want to play, but catch everybody up on some of the musical, acts that you're currently playing with. I know that you kind of have one main gig and doing all kinds of, hired gun sort of stuff, but talk to us about the different situations you're playing in currently.
Yeah. So, my main artist gig right now is, Rick Monroe. Monster Energy artist. He started out as the Jägermeister guy in town. It's crazy how he started out because he started out tier 1. He was at the very top, traveling with Randy Houser and Eric Church and all these big names. And, now he's kind of gone back to the drawing board, of dropping Jägermeister off his title and, starting from, the trenches and going up through growing up, in the business now, and now he's back to being a very successful artist and, keeping our schedule very busy even through the pandemic. As of 2 weeks ago, we were in Minnesota again, playing a casino gig, and, so even during the tough times, we're still traveling and having good work, So that's my main one, and he's actually recently. I just actually did a session earlier, and I'm actually on his upcoming new record that he's putting together. He's putting an EP together, and then he's going to be releasing an album later on. But I'm on 4 tracks of that now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So he's having me on the sessions too now, which is great, and yeah, I'm very thankful and happy for that, and that's going really good for me. A couple other names that I've gotten to play with, Matt Poling, a great artist. If you want to look him up, he's a phenomenal songwriter. Speaking of phenomenal songwriters, Mike Riley, another guy I've played with. I've done a lot of acoustic gigs. Hey, drummers, Cajon isn't as bad as it seems. I've made a lot of money playing Cajon gigs downtown and for songwriter rounds and stuff. It's put a lot of food on my table. Shout out to JVC Cajons in North Carolina. Check those bad boys out. That'll make you love Cajon very quickly. So those two artists were awesome, have been awesome for me. Jimmy Charles is another one, American Idol contestant that I've gotten to travel with a lot this past year, past 2 years actually, and playing in town as well. Great artist. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but great. I love all the artists in this town. There's so many, just great names that are doing great things in this town that, get kind of overlooked because of the, mentality of, big or not, household name or not. So there's just so many artists in this town that are doing great things and are great songwriters. I thoroughly enjoy doing the original artist kind of gigs. I love going downtown, having fun, getting to play with awesome musicians, on Broadway. But I prefer doing the original, artist gigs of going out and, getting on, the six passenger bus, vans and just grinding. I'm more preferential of doing those kind of gigs since I've moved to town.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but, I often say if you go into any restaurant in Nashville, the guy or girl that brings you your cheeseburger is probably the best guitarist, singer, drummer that you've never heard of, because the talent there is crazy. And I'm going to show my age, but years and years ago, this is probably 20 years ago, my wife and I, we had only been married a short time. We spent a long weekend in Nashville, and I went to see an old friend of mine down on Printer's Alley playing down there, Stacy Mitchhart, great blues guitarist from Cincinnati. But his band was playing at a little place on Printer's Alley, so we went to go check out his band. And at the end of the night, the girl that had brought me my beer all night long, my waitress, he got her up on stage to sing. And I was like, holy crap, that girl can sing. Tore the roof off. It was Gretchen Wilson.
Nice.
So, you know what I'm saying? Became one of the biggest female stars of the early 2000s. And she was a waitress in a bar on Printer's Alley. So, I mean, you just never know. So, kudos to you for getting out there with those singer-songwriter types, because, again, every door you walk through in your corridor, you never know which one is going to blow up. Who could be the next Taylor Swift, the next, Keith Whitley or whomever. It's amazing the amount of talent down there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It really is. So what is on the horizon for 2021 for you, Stefan? I mean, obviously nobody knows when the touring will resume, really, like full force. But, what are you working on? What is penciled into your calendar so far for this year?
As of right now, pretty open. I think this year is going to be, it feels very good to me. Like even, the other day, yesterday actually, being the first day of the new year, it was amazing. It was beautiful out. Absolutely beautiful. Clear blue skies, at least here it was. And, I think that's just such a hopeful kind of sight to see, like this past year has been just such a nasty, just hell of a time for everybody. And I just thought that was such a kind of like, foreshadowing moment of just a hopefulness, So as of right now, pretty open. I have my, here and there gigs downtown. Like I said, doing a lot of session stuff at home, which is great, tracking at home. But I also just recently got into working for Innovative Percussion. I just started with them about a month ago. Phenomenal company, phenomenal people to work with. I thoroughly enjoy it. Their craftsmanship is unreal, second to none, and that's really been a new adventure for me this year, that I've kind of adapted into getting, with quotations, a blue-collar job, because I get to work around drumsticks and mallets and stuff all day still, and get to be surrounded around, products that I use every day to make music. So that was a big goal for me, was if I was going to do a job here, I still wanted it to be involved in what I'm doing, long term. So.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, a lot of people outside of the Nashville sphere, Innovative Percussion doesn't, it doesn't ring a bell with them. Everybody knows, Vic Firth and Vader and ProMark and all that stuff. But, Innovative really has been a staple in the Nashville scene for many, many years now. And, a lot of the guys, the Nashville guys are, playing Innovative sticks, right? And, it's a very well-respected company down there in Nashville. So congratulations on that gig. And,
Thank you.
I think it's just really important for folks to understand that there are always going to be lean times when you're trying to play music for a living. I don't care how good you are. You're always going to have a period of like, yeah, this is bad. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at this past year alone.
Yeah.
I mean, you have those big name guys that we were talking about earlier. They're even going to. I saw Donnie Marple with Lee Bryce. He started a window washing company now. Just we're all grinders. You have to be grinders. You could be playing the most high profile gig, and your year has gotten rocked this past year. Everyone's has. And you have to, like I said earlier about adaptation and just adapting to your surroundings, not sitting around and just taking the ass whooping, and just, sitting there and adapting and making things work for what the situation and, with that you are dealt with, and making lemonade out of lemons,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've all got brothers and sisters that are, driving Uber Eats and working landscaping gigs, in 2020. It's hard times for everybody. And it's not just the musicians. It's the lighting technicians and the electricians. Just the whole industry was decimated last year. And, just kudos to you for grinding it out, man, and keeping on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah. It's been tough, but you just got to stay positive. It's about having a positive mindset and enjoying what you do have, and just sticking through it. I've seen a lot of names leave this town this past year. Players from downtown to touring, that I've enjoyed their company of hanging out around town, and now they've moved back home, because this city has become, very isolated and hard to even harder to navigate than it was before. And unfortunately, it's led to a lot of people leaving that are phenomenal musicians that they could have had a pathway or a direction to success. And now, whether they move back here when things pick back up again. But yeah, I mean, it's very tough.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm rooting for you, brother. I really am. And, you're going to have to keep us posted on, everything that's going on and, keep us up to speed on your adventures as we follow your career to its heights that are undoubtedly, down the road. So, please keep me posted on everything that's going on, and we'll have you back, for sure, to kind of,
oh, I'd love that.
Yeah. Catch everybody up on what's going on. So, All right, man. Well, listen, as is our tradition, we always ask everybody for a good piece of advice. And, I think your whole interview has been full of great advice for folks. But, if you could impart one piece of advice on, other musicians, other drummers, what would it be?
Let's see. I think the best one would be kind of relative and just kind of all around, helpful would just be, like I said, be an open book, not only with who you are to yourself, but whenever you're in a professional environment, don't close yourself off to anything, whether it's ideas or whether you think you hear something one way, if you're tracking, or in a session with other players, always be open to anything, kind of the same concept of saying yes to all the gigs, because as soon as you shut yourself off and put up a wall, you close opportunities that could have happened, or you close doors that could have opened for you, and you kind of get known as being a great player and someone that can do their job, but not to the fullest, It's one of those things to where you can sit there and be the best you can be, or halfway best, So it's just one of those things to where, you have to stay consistently open and be ready to and willing to accept criticism and use it to your advantage and keep improving. And you never know where it can lead you. I mean, it's just endless heights at that point.
Yeah, man, that's the juice right there, Stefan. It really is. I mean, that's
the groove juice.
It is, man. I mean, that just, it encapsulates exactly what it means to be a professional musician. It really does. I mean, I could go on for hours about the times that I kick my own ass for not listening. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And it took me, 20 plus years of playing semi-professionally to figure out, sometimes it's not about the notes you do play. It's about the notes you don't play. Right. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
And
less is more.
Yeah. It's just, and once I figured that out, it was too late for me. Right.
Never too late, Jamie. Never too late.
Too old to get in those 5-passenger vans, though. Let me tell you.
I completely feel you there. I'm 25 and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, man. You have to have a good back to sleep in those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Stefan, man, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. Real quick before we let you go, give everybody the social media handles where they can look you up and kind of follow your adventures.
Yeah, absolutely. So Facebook, it's Stefan Chippeaux, Stefan, and then Chippeaux. And then Instagram is scdrums, and then 4. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mainly do Facebook and Instagram. I really don't try and dig in too much to any other social media stuff. There's just so many platforms nowadays. I mean, I have Twitter, but I never use it. So yeah, those are the two main ones for me.
All right.
And then my YouTube channel, I think it's just under Stefan Chippeaux as well. But yeah, I have a link and stuff in my Instagram bio and stuff, that you can go check that out. There's not too much on there, but yeah.
All right, fantastic, man. Well, we're going to send some folks your way, but seriously, keep us all posted on what you've got going on, and we'll have you back later this year and see how 21 shapes out for you.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I love that. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and thank you for doing this podcast for everybody. For working drummers, for normal people that are just inspiring to play music. You're doing great things. I'm so excited this platform exists, and I'm honored that I was on here with all these amazing names you've had on this.
Oh man, thanks. I appreciate that. We just want to focus on folks that are making their way and having some success. And again, different people define success different ways. Not everybody can be Peter Erskine or Marco Miniman or whomever. Not everybody can be at the very top of their genre. it takes all of us working and building the community that is drumming, and you're a big part of that. So we're glad to have you, and we'll have you back anytime, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome, man. You have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
All right, guys and girls, that's going to wrap up episode number 122 of the Drum Shuffle podcast. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We simply cannot do this without each and every one of you tuning in and week out to our show. We sincerely appreciate that. As I ask you every week, hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you use to listen in to the Drum Shuffle. It really helps us to continue to grow. Give us a star rating, a review, a thumbs up, whatever you can do to show your support to the podcast. We would certainly appreciate that. The biggest thing you can do is share a link with a friend, and we appreciate those efforts as well. We do answer every single email that we receive here at the show. Our email address is thedrumshufflepodcast@gmail.com. Our web address is thedrumshuffle.com, and you can always find more information about me over at jamieeads.com. We have a lot of great guests coming up for you in this new year, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. You're not going to want to miss any episodes that we have coming up over the next few weeks. So until that time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.